Hello, World Civilization 106 class. Welcome to week 7. I just want to start off by mentioning that I really am enjoying more and more seeing that the discussions are showing that you all are engaged with the material and actually are having interest in the content. With the India discussion, when it came to the legacy of Ashoka or Ashok, I had two articles that were contradicting each other. So I just want to remind you that anytime I have articles that are that you have to read and respond to in a discussion, like I'm going to be having this week, so you don't have a paper, but you have a discussion that requires you to engage with some of the contents is a little bit dense, okay? But that is the whole point. I need to see that you actually can convince me that you actually engage with the material. I was still being very generous on the way I was grading with the one prior, but for this one, I would just want to let you know, if you want full points for it, it's just really needs to be clear to me that you actually read both articles on Zoroastrianism and that you are able to articulate an opinion on those. And keep in mind, this is the standard way that this is how university life works, right? I'm giving you the respect of trusting and working with your own intellect and your own ability to analyze material and then have your own genuine opinion about the convincingness of one argument versus the other, right? And of course, you're not beholden to this for life, right? I mean, some of you might think, well, I'm just getting exposed to this for the first time. I mean, it's not like if you get it wrong, the universe is going to collapse in on you, right? It's a way to try to help you out to learn how to be a critical thinker, engage with material, and articulating yourself back to other people, information that you process, like what I have to do with all of you, right? So instead of stressing out about that, I want you to enjoy that, right? You don't have a paper to write, so you can really just focus on working with the discussion and doing that. Now, you'll notice also that I put in the links of the reading, some Bible scriptures that I said are food for thought. So, again, I mentioned there, that doesn't really need to be a part of the discussions. If you feel that it fits into the discussions organically, if you have a place to put them, then you can. But there's a question or a debate about the influence of Zoroastrianism, whether or not, on Judaism and Christianity. Now, do you remember when we covered ancient Egypt, there was the same question that was posed about Akhenaten in ancient Egypt. Was it 12th, 13th century BCE? Around that time frame, are we seeing the influence of the Egyptian religion on the monotheism of Jewish people? I mentioned that's that you had scholars that were making more definitive statements, and now that's not so clear to a lot of scholars. But what my point is, we've seen this question get brought up before already in the class, right? About whether or not some outside culture influenced another one. Now, I think that most of you it's fair to say that if you're not religious, that's not a controversial statement or a controversial approach. But it's interesting, and this comes up from time to time, as we discuss things in history. Nationalists and religious communities really, really, really react strongly to the idea that their religion or the national culture is influenced by outside sources for a lot of reasons that are logical, right? If your religion is God-inspired, you don't dare imply that there's some human behavior that's coming in and actually influencing your belief system. if you take pride in your national culture as if your national culture was like indigenous and pure, and the idea that you got influence from somewhere else, even worse, maybe cultures that you think are inferior to your own, or something like that. So this kind of thing always can kind of come up and get a little bit dicey. I'm not trying to be provocative as much as actually just kind of like bring that out, and also just, take a look at it. It's interesting scriptures, right? The scriptures that I showed you from the Bible, I know very well because I grew up with a very strong, biblical tradition in my life. That those are scriptures that are not commonly referred to. There is definitely discussions on the internet about them, but they're just very stimulating to kind of ask the question in regards to the questions of monotheism, henotheism, and polytheism, and the Jewish and Christian tradition, and the way that the texts can be read. I don't really have an agenda on that, actually. I don't. I just think it's interesting, and I think that you will find this interesting, regardless of where your faith is at on this, as we move forward. And later we're going to go into Judaism and Christianity. So remember, though, we covered ancient Israel already, but I make Judaism separate from ancient Israel. They are historically connected, but they're actually two different things, somewhat, and which is what I will clarify when you get there, and then when we get to the section, and then we're going to go over Christianity, and even to what we know about the canonization of the Bible and theology within the Christian tradition. So I hope you all will just continue to find this interesting, and you'll see that as we move into ancient Persia, this is the land of Iran. Iran, as it's commonly referred to in English language, has been on the news lately with protests of women and the broader community that's been going on there over the morality police and the head covering. Now, I will also be covering Islam later, because ancient Iran was mainly Zoroastrian and was a Persian culture outside of Islam. Now it is dominated by Shiite Islam. When we get to Islam, which we're going to cover, I will deal with the variables on Islamic countries and the way that Sharia or Islamic law is applied or not in some places. And one of the things I just want to say about modern history, because we're covering the ancient world, the Islamic revolution that happened in the 70s and the government that's in Iran right now is actually a radical innovation in terms of Islamic history and theology. But that's for another topic at another time. I just want to keep you all interested to follow this journey that we're taking ourselves through, to look at all these different civilizations, where they were at originally in centuries past, and where they march on to, and what we can actually learn about them. And then the last thing I'm just going to say is, well, I'm making this video on Sunday, October 9th. Tomorrow is the 10th, and it's Columbus Day. My response to that is this Native American, or actually I should say indigenous, music presentation. Many indigenous people are also linked with Canada, and so that would mean like Native American in terms of continent. As a side note, when I was in Portland, there was I made many friends that are actually affiliated with their tribes. I realized that up in Oregon and Washington, native indigenous culture is much more pronounced, because there's a lot of reservations and a lot of people that speak their language, their original tribe's language, and still practice their religion and culture. And so and some of them still refer to themselves as American Indians, by the way. So that's just a side note. I won't go too far into that for now. But just to say that, well, anyhow, I'm letting them, I'm featuring them for Columbus Day with the video that I'm posting, and the implications of Columbus. And actually, one last thing I'm going to say on this. In 1492, when Columbus sailed the ocean blue, Ferdinand and Isabella in Spain also kicked out every Muslim and every Jew. Jewish people and Muslims were expelled as a reconquest of the Catholic Church took place on the Iberian Peninsula. And so Columbus doesn't just represent a huge impact on the indigenous peoples here on northern, central, and South America, but also to a kind of end of a multicultural world that existed in Spain at the time. And so that's all I'll say for now. And I hope you're all having a blessed weekend. And feel free again to always contact me about any issues you have about what I'm teaching in the class, what I say in announcements. And if you see a problem with your grade, question me on anything. I just fixed somebody's grade. I messed up on my grading. So, excuse me. If you see something that doesn't seem right, please contact me. I will hear what you have to say and look into it. And in this case, there was a mistake on my part. So, yeah, that's all I'm going to say. All right. You have a good week. We'll be in touch.